Hey guys, it's Milai. I just wanted to talk before starting out this new episode of the podcast. To start out, this was filmed outside, so there may be the occasional bird call or hum of traffic in the background. I did try my best to remove as much noise as possible, but it's far from perfect. As well, this episode features two friends of mine, Caleb Kaiser and Jon Apgar. They explain their YouTube channel, The Bro Show, from its humble beginnings in the Wild West of early YouTube to the past few years of stagnation. Please enjoy the show and like, comment, and subscribe for more content like this.
Alright, so to preface, so we're doing this on a Thursday night, and we watched every single Bro Show episode this past Sunday. Every single one. It took like 2.5 hours, maybe?
Yeah,
somewhere around there.
I like it.
Yeah, because you guys had season 1.
Right.
And you had season 2, and then you had a few comeback videos, and then you guys never came
interview.
Yep. Yeah, so we're gonna kind of disseminate this starting out from the beginnings, and then we'll move forward to like what happened, and then you had a video just 2 years ago. So in YouTube time, that's not that long. There's been people who have taken longer breaks and come back. So.
We're primed. We're ready.
Yeah.
I think this podcast will be the reason we come back.
Yeah, just watch this podcast get like 1,000 views, and then you guys maybe we should consider restarting this.
Right.
Call him Gavin.
So do you want the very beginning origin?
Yeah, so
Okay.
what was your main, was it just you guys sat down one day and were like, we're going to start a YouTube channel? How did that all happen?
Well, it was spring semester of
that was
2012.
Is it 2012 or
2011, 2012?
I think it's 12
because we had.
Because I think I was driving. So
right, and we were both at the community college together.
Yeah,
and we'd eat lunch every Tuesday, Thursday, or something.
And I think I was just over at your house hanging out. Mm-hmm. I don't think we had even planned on doing this.
We had talked about it. You were inspired by White Boy 7th Street or something.
Street,
yeah, that was the ultimate inspiration. I don't know if he's still around.
Probably. He was like an old Call of Duty YouTuber. And that was back when I was real into Modern Warfare 3 probably. And I just remember. Yeah.
So we were eating our soup because we always ate soup.
Yep.
And one of the things we talked about was starting our own YouTube show and all the grandeur we could have.
Were you into YouTube at that time?
Not a whole lot. I was getting into it because back then there were a lot of contests I was entering. And I had been watching Chauncey Phillips for a couple of years already. But I wasn't as into YouTube as I became after that.
And did you guys have a plan going in what you guys were going to talk about? I know the first episode you explained you talk about movies and games and music and sports. But did you have a specific corner of the internet that you wanted to dive into with your channel?
Not really.
Info. The first episode was the Bros Info Show. So I think we wanted to be informative.
We couldn't really decide on a specific area, which might have been part of our downfall.
Could be.
But we just kind of... We're what do we care about? All these things. Let's talk about all of them.
Especially Mega Upload.
Yeah. In your first episode, you explained why you guys are called The Bro Show. And the literal explanation is we just call each other bro. So,
I feel like...
Do you guys ever actually call each other bro? Or did you ever actually call each other bro?
Yeah,
we did.
Back then we did. Not anymore.
Not just in front of camera, behind the scenes.
That was really what we would call each other. And then I don't exactly know why that made it into the video, but for some reason we decided to just go with it.
Yeah, that was a large chunk of the video.
It was,
Yeah.
it stands out. It really sticks out.
Yeah.
Every great YouTuber has some dumb story of how they came up with their name, though. So we're not an outlier with regard to that.
You gotta admit, though, not an original name.
No.
Turns out, at the time, we thought we were pretty original.
It was pretty original. It was like us and one other channel. Now there's probably 100 more.
There's
but
a few Hey It's Me Lies.
Really?
Yeah,
Interesting.
there's a few Hey It's Me Lies, and that's why I feel like I need to rebrand, but I also feel like now I'm the dominant one. If you search Hey It's Me Lie on YouTube, I am number one.
You know, when you made that channel back in early 2010s, you were probably the only one. And then now, people have just stolen it.
It's true.
Plus, you can't... Back when we were on YouTube, there weren't, like, all these algorithms that decided that, like, look at what you search for and pulls up the most popular thing with that. It was truly what was most popular.
Yeah.
Whereas now, they'll look at your internet and be like, oh, we'll put your channel as number one.
It caters to you.
Right.
And that, I mean, you guys uploaded back when the sidebar was, when it was a sidebar.
That's true.
You got real into tags for a little bit, which...
Yeah.
Is that a thing now?
It's somewhat.
Thing. I don't know how effective they are. The annotations were a thing.
We made our producer always do the annotations to link every single episode.
Annotations were cool back in the day.
They were helpful.
And now they don't exist.
Right.
After your first few episodes, did you guys get much of a response from the people who watched it? I know you got a response from me, but we'll talk about that maybe later.
I feel like the first episode got a lot of response. That was back when, everyone we were sharing it to, like, would actually watch it.
Right.
And then they were like, oh, well, that's okay. There's a lot of things to work on, but we got some response then. I feel like the next few videos, we probably got a good response for a little bit, and then it started tapering off after first 5 or so episodes, maybe.
Yeah.
We had our die-hard fans that we'll get into, but yeah, I mean, the first episode, there's a reason it has the most views. It was kind of a big deal.
Yeah. It was a big deal at the time for those of you who were around back then. If you remember, we talked about this on Sunday. It was Claymore Disco and the Bro Show. That was what was hot at that time.
And there was one clearly dominant property.
There's one that's still around. So.
Right.
Yeah,
that's a good point.
Active as of 2 years ago. So
as of right now.
The other one was not active as of 2 years ago.
Yeah.
So.
Rip Claymore. So, none of them are going to listen to this, so I'm not afraid.
We're changing names anyway.
Oh, we'll announce that at the end.
Right.
I'll cut this part out, so, like, at the surprise, it's like, we're changing our name to The Dude Show.
Dude Show.
Or something.
Sure.
No.
Hey, dude. What's up, dude?
Yeah. Your first few episodes, was this entirely just you two in front of a camera? Was there anyone else who would help out with anything?
Bare bones.
The first 2 was just us two.
Just us.
Editing was not a thing in the first few episodes.
No, it was never really much of a thing.
Stream of consciousness was the king when it came to Bro Show.
There was significant quality issues. The first one had some significant sound issues. And then the second one had some significant video issues.
Yeah.
Significant isn't strong enough.
Yeah, there's maybe half of the video where it was paused. And,
that's true.
Yeah. And one thing I noticed is, at least in the first episodes, maybe the first season entirely, there was a lot of... Energy's not the right word. Enthusiasm's not the right word. But you guys felt very interested in what you were talking about and the channel as a whole.
I feel like enthusiasm is one of the right words to describe. Like the first episode, we were so excited. We were saying things together.
Yeah. It might not portray itself as easily as enthusiasm to like a viewer, but I think that was the energy as we were kind of doing it. We were excited to be doing it. We were having fun doing it. we were kind of enthusiastic to do it. And as you kind of alluded to, as it goes on, some of that enthusiasm kind of left.
And some of that had to do with, like, real life.
Yeah.
But...
Yeah. I mean, in high school, you have all the time in the world.
Exactly.
And less cares in the world than when you're an adult or when you reach adulthood.
Yeah.
Would you say that a lot of that enthusiasm came out of naivety, or would you say it's more you guys just were happy and were just having fun with it?
Probably
That's
the latter.
what it was.
Yeah.
Yeah. Definitely happy and fun.
Yeah.
We weren't caring so much about what was happening with the channel as much as it was a fun time to kind of hang out, talk about our subjects a little bit, start the video, and just kind of go.
And you guys were very consistent starting out. Like, I think it's maybe once every 2 weeks you posted a video. And
very consistent.
Did you guys have like a set shooting time and upload time, or did you guys just kind of go with the flow, at least starting out?
I think we did Sunday afternoons quite a bit. And that continued for filming for the whole first season.
Mm-hmm.
Like, we would film Sunday afternoons, but as for like upload, it was kind of... At first, it was as soon as John got home normally.
And
we got a producer, which kind of changed things, but that's what it was initially.
So let's talk about the fans from the beginning. You have a few fans that were there from beginning to end, and I think it'd be unfair to talk about the channel without that sort of support. So who would you consider your mega fans of the Bro Show?
Josiah,
100%.
Josiah Henderson. Yeah. He left a comment on probably 90% of them.
It's impressive.
And we checked
them.
Yeah, we definitely checked them.
And they were always constructive, too.
Right.
He was there as a fan of the channel, not just to, like, kind of rile anything. Like, he was always helping, like, us find new topics and
I
stuff.
definitely was there just to rile.
I mean, that's what I do on YouTube a lot, too. Yeah. I like to rile things up.
In the comments section. Yeah. Who are some other fans we saw? Faith was one.
It's tough because Josiah is kind of on a whole nother level.
Yeah.
He's, like, up at the top by himself.
Yeah.
Then there's some other people.
Yeah.
But comments from Code Kaiser.
Yeah. Speaking of Code Kaiser, how supportive were your families of this channel and your videos?
They were, our second video, the reason the audio was good was because we had a mic from my dad, but then we also used a webcam, so, that kind of lose some.
We didn't have any good lighting.
Yeah, the best lighting, I felt a raindrop, but the best lighting was definitely the TV in the very back of the video.
Definitely, yeah. We were actually getting ready to watch Paranormal Activity, so I'm pretty sure.
Yeah. So that's an interesting bit.
I guess going back, like, Faith, I have absolutely no idea who that is, but I'm glad she watched.
She was very enthusiastic about it too.
Yeah,
it wasn't just like
two
good
comments.
job, guys.
Right.
Yeah. No, it was like, I love this show. Like,
that was really
crazy.
I did not realize that was a thing until we watched them again Sunday.
Yeah.
Right. I'm sure I noticed at one point back in the day, but I forgot about that until a couple days ago.
As someone who is on the outside of the videos, I definitely noticed a lot of us were very enthusiastic the first video or two, and I think the viewership count shows this as well. And then as we moved on, we lost interest, and a part of that, I think, was just, I'm feeling the same thing with Hey It's Mila, my first video. Not the one of us screaming on Garden of the Gods. That one does have my highest view count, but the first episode of mine had the highest, and I think that's the one I pushed the most, but then afterwards it takes a lot more energy to push out promotion and getting people enthusiastic, especially when you kind of run out of ideas after the first few. At least I did. So kind of going back to topic choices, as we moved on, you guys had this one standard that kind of stayed consistent throughout season 1, and that was doing the top 30 grossing movies. So what made you decide to add that segment into your videos?
I think we realized we weren't going to be fully relevant with like everything as it came out, because we were not going to the movies and watching all the TV necessarily. John was watching most of the new TV as it came out, but like we were not going to stay real relevant, so we kind of were like, well, we can't just talk about our favorites because there's lots of videos about our favorites. Let's do some kind of countdown. And at the time we were like had some movies coming up that people were projecting to kind of get pretty far in the top box office.
Dark Knight Rises was one of them, and the other was
The Avengers.
Avengers, yeah. And it was interesting seeing how before those movies came out, there was a lot of talk about it in your episodes, and then after they came out, it was kind of like, oh, sweet, it happened.
I mean, we were kind of talking about it when we were rewatching them, but The Dark Knight Rises was almost the entire overall theme thing that connected more than like the first season, if not more, of the Bro Show. It always came up at least once in each video, it seemed like. To be honest, like, I don't know, since then, like, I mean, Star Wars came out, but everyone was so hyped for that movie. It was pretty exciting times.
Yeah.
But then I think we both kind of realized we're not real movie critics necessarily.
Right.
So after we watched it, we were like, well, it was good. I don't know what else to say about it. Like,
right.
part of that also might have been our off-the-cuff kind of approach to talking about things, was we wouldn't have necessarily all of the information or ideas kind of fully set.
Yeah, because movie critics are insane. Like, they'll go into the movie with a journal and write down notes as the movie's going on, and I just don't think you guys were at that level. And that
It was real close, but not quite.
Yeah.
Around that time, though, is when YouTube critics were becoming like more important than journalist critics. So I mean, a lot of YouTube critics, their videos are, 5 minutes or so they're not going that in depth. So I mean, that's kind of what we were targeting.
Yeah.
We just didn't. We still could have had like an outline or something, though, of points we wanted to hit on. But
did you guys have a target demographic?
No.
Ourselves.
I don't. You're right. We wanted to talk about things we liked.
And if you watch a lot of Q&As from successful YouTubers, I feel like they always say, I just wanted to make videos that I enjoyed, and then other people ended up liking it as well.
Yeah, and I think if we had kind of hit the ideal that we had for ourselves, like the kind of what we thought we were, it would have been pretty entertaining to the general public. But I think we were just a little bit away from that on the way we conveyed our conversations and stuff.
Would you guys say you were kind of withholding with how you approached filming and your discussions, or is it more you just didn't have the stability and structure to support that? I guess that's a poor way of putting it, but like not having an outline or things like that.
I don't know if we were necessarily withholding anything. I just don't know if because the issue we ran into is we would have like these really good conversations before filming where we would talk about things more in depth, and then we didn't like purposely withhold information while filming. We just didn't convey as well as we could have.
Some of it's also that this was before YouTube long form was really popular. So the idea of us having 10-minute videos seemed super daunting to everyone. And they were, because we would try to jam 3 subjects into those 10 minutes. But I think if we had focused on one thing for that whole time and had kind of filmed more of our buildup of ideas, we could have gotten more interesting topics in there.
Yeah, just kind of tightening up
That's a kind of very broad topic that we can get into, is how we could have been successful at certain times, but we were either too early or too late. Because kind of the history of YouTube is it started out very short form content. It evolved into very highly produced shows, which I think we were kind of in the early stages of those highly produced ones. Big companies were throwing tons of money at these content creators, and eventually that wasn't sustainable. So companies like Defy Media, Smosh, or maybe not Smosh, but like SourceFed and things like that ended up going away. And then you end up back at individual content creators. Sure, they have better lighting and audio than we had, but other than that, it's kind of similar to the content we were doing and in long form.
And I feel like the accessibility of good audio and visuals is a lot easier than before too. Like the starting ground is much simpler, but I also think back in the day, YouTube, you could have just filmed in your backyard and have gotten a major response. There was a lot less like editing. It was more just kind of off the cuff, and that's, I think your show kind of reflects the trends of YouTube at the time too, which we'll get more into of how it ended up being. But thinking back of 2012 or 2010 to 2012, maybe up to like 2015, most of the YouTubers were very, even if they were doing vlog styles, very low-key, very relaxed. And as time moved on, like you said, it's getting more produced. It's more skits. It's more news outlets and things like that. And I don't know if it's fully going back to how it was before, but I think it's more individualistic than it was for quite some time.
I think it is, because those companies weren't sustainable. I think we were kind of in the middle, though, of that transition from these big corporate type of YouTube channels. Because I messaged this guy, and I'll give him we'll call him Mandy, even though it's a guy. And no one who listens to this is gonna know who he is. No. But I sent him a video because he was actually a professional. So in like video production industry, I don't know if I probably sent this to you, but I don't know if you've heard it before. But it does kind of reflect what the state of YouTube was. And this is from June 16th, 2012. I said, "Hey Mandy, this is our new video. I know it's too long and we are working on fixing that, but we used some of your tips in editing." And then I asked for feedback if he had time. So we were obviously back when short form was the main thing. He says, "Hey Jon, I watched your video the other night and it put me to sleep because it was so long." JK, he's not kidding, but he says JK, but I did fall asleep. But that's because it was a long day. I like your newer format. I don't know what format that was, but it was probably like our first introduction or something like that Gavin put in.
And we were keeping it probably to 5 or 6 minutes at that time, because we were trying to keep it short at that point.
Yeah, he says, I like the newer format, but I think if you guys want to get bigger, it needs to be more scripted or edited more. 11 minutes is way too long, bro.
11?
Should be 5 to 6 minutes. But keep that in mind, the average attention span is 30 seconds, and your intro was like 2 minutes. In retrospect, but it was good. Just simply short and faster and make it yours. So, I mean, YouTube is the complete opposite. Now, like, everyone's watching 40-minute videos or more.
Everyone wants to hit that 10-minute mark to get that second ad.
Right.
And YouTube has changed its mode of clicks? Because I think before it was how many videos you watched on YouTube was kind of where the money was, and now it's how long people stay on YouTube. And that was, I mean, yeah.
And even moves on and says, like, use Philly D as a model. Which,
I guess...
He definitely has longer videos now, too.
Yeah.
It's just interesting because I saw a video the other day that a friend sent me that was 2 hours long. Mm-hmm. I didn't actually watch the whole thing yet, but it's describing some lore from some movie, and it's like compared to that, it's like very unedited. It's mostly just this guy talking with like some clip art over it, and it's 2 hours long and has millions of views. And compared to the, hey, keep it to 5 minutes and have lots of editing, it's like, nope, this guy's just talking for hours and hours.
And we did keep it, like, the episodes that we kept it to 5 minutes were not good.
We didn't have time to talk.
We moved on so quickly, like, there was no substance to those.
And then, like, halfway through a conversation, you'd be like, all right, that's it.
Exactly, because we had to get moving.
Our producer would be like, all right, that's where time.
Right.
Yeah, so speaking of, I think... Now that we've really discussed editing, let's talk about bringing in a third person onto the team. So what decision process was that to find someone to come in and be the behind-the-scenes person?
We weren't doing it. So that was a lot of it, was we were not doing it. It was a time when you needed editing.
Right. Very important.
Gavin really liked editing. He had like some of the software for it, and he enjoyed doing that. And we were hanging out a lot anyway, so we were like, "Oh, this makes sense. Let's."
Who approached who with this idea? You guys to him, or him to you?
Probably us to him.
Okay.
Yeah. We knew we needed some help.
Yeah.
So.
And do you feel like, at least from watching it, I felt like there was a significant change in quality at that point? And did you guys feel that as well going into it with him?
Yeah, I feel like we had actual intros. The music might have been copyrighted, which was something that I don't think at the time we realized as much.
No.
It didn't matter as
Monetization was so complicated back then. Like, we had no idea what we were doing.
Yeah. So it went way more interesting. All of a sudden there were these like little like movie posters in the middle that some of them were not great quality or even the right movie sometimes. But there was something there in this time before like podcasts and the like idea of just sitting and talking without any visual, like that was like at least something. There was a saving grace to like have some like distraction from just looking at us talk, I guess.
We loved it at first. I mean, the thing that wasn't so good about it is that people would just want to see Gavin's intros or Gavin's outros. Because, I mean, for back then, I mean, they're not anything special now, but back then they were pretty cool. So people would watch the beginning, skip where we talk,
like that one
and then
video
watch the end.
We saw the analytics. It was like viewership or like length of viewing or whatever, and it dipped
spiked so
after
hard.
Like the first 45 seconds to a minute. I haven't seen those on. I should look at those on my videos.
You should. Be interesting.
So, I guess going on. So that partnership started out well, and I figure, like, I feel like when he first started, it's hard to tell when he first started because the videos were pretty similar starting out, and then
4 or 5, I think.
And then as time went on, especially when we got into season 2, the quality changed dramatically, I feel like. But I feel like in those times you guys had a good balance between you guys and him editing and I guess the talent, since you were in the front of the camera.
That's us.
Did you guys feel that entirely too, or was there discord in the beginning of it?
I mean, whenever you're like not initially much, but whenever you're like 3 of you are kind of all working on something, there's dissent. I mean, even when just the 2 of us were working, like there was like dissent on what to talk about to some extent. Gavin brought just another personality to it, and that brought a little bit more conflict, especially as time went on. But initially, I think we were all on board with it.
Yeah.
For the first, probably, I don't know, 5 videos together, 6 videos together. It wasn't until like
probably
episode 10 or 11, somewhere around there, when it started getting a little bit more difficult.
Like that time when you kicked him.
I think that's later than 10 or 11.
That was
Maybe.
season 2, probably.
Oh, yeah. When you guys were just, yeah.
I don't know, like, part of it too, though, and this is kind of more on the personal side and outside of the bro show, but, like, Caleb and I do agree on a lot of things, I feel like. And, I mean, there were disagreements on topics and stuff, but we could usually convince each other. But a third party, like Gavin, did disagree on quite a bit. So it was always a 2 versus 1 type of dynamic.
Which isn't really healthy, which is probably why it led to an us versus him at some points when we're trying to decide what to talk about.
It was, like, some of those later episodes, it was always us versus him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There was very little agreement. And we always did what we wanted to do because we were in charge.
Yeah.
But
I mean, there would be influence still on what we would do to some extent. We would do what we wanted, but we would cater to him and make it shorter or address this topic or something.
And did you guys have a say in the editing? Or were you mostly hands off? You filmed and then it was in Gavin's hands?
Completely hands off. Yeah. Which could have been an issue too, but we didn't feel like getting more involved.
No.
And it wasn't an issue until some later things.
Yeah.
But
so towards the end of season 1, I feel like that's when you guys finally got your swing, or found your swing, and found your niche, and were pretty confident. But one thing I've noticed, quality of production and enthusiasm are completely inverse as we go into season 2. And you guys started season 2 with a set, I guess. You had that poster of Einstein in the background. And then you had a table and chairs. And you looked a little bit more official. But there wasn't that same charm, I suppose, from the first season. So did you guys feel going into season 2 that you just kind of had to do it? Or did you feel like, no, this is something I still want to keep working at?
I think we wanted to do it, but it was a time where we were in college now, and time was harder to find. So it was, we were less like, oh yeah, we'll just hang out for hours and do it. So by the time we were done with like 2 to 3 hours of discussion beforehand, and we're actually getting to the filming, that's when I think our enthusiasm had dipped, because we were kind of done with it for that day. Like, it wasn't so much done with the bro show as much as it was, all right, we've been talking for too long. It's probably about 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock at night. I have school in the morning. I'm really kind of don't want to keep going. And that was always when we'd actually set up and start filming.
it was. A lot of those were on Friday nights, too.
Yeah.
Which Friday nights are always kind of exhausting anyway.
Yeah. I mean, even today, trying to figure out this, because we talked about this maybe 3 or 4 weeks ago, doing this show, and then also finding time to sit down and watch all of them, and then finding time to do this. I know with all of us in our schedules, even this was hard, and I couldn't imagine in the middle of college, because I just feel like college is a lot harder to schedule things than when you're in a working life. So, also with season 2, did you feel like from the fans or the people who would watch your videos, there was the same enthusiasm going back into it?
No.
I mean,
not at all.
Josiah was still there, but we had given it so much time off that the kind of like passive, oh yeah, you guys do that YouTube thing, like as little as that was, had completely even disappeared, because it was, I don't know if it was a year in between them, but it feels like that looking back. Like, it was a long time.
Yeah.
It felt like there was a year in between season 1 and season 2.
I think it was at least 10 months or something.
Probably.
Like that. And season 2, I think this is going along with what you said about the college and busyness, and I think at least you were starting a job, John,
Mm-hmm.
too. The consistency also went down, which might have lowered the flame of your fan base.
It was always a challenge to get together, and then half the time you get together and you just didn't feel like doing it at all, but you finally found the time, so you had to do it. And then we fought for like an hour or two beforehand about what to do, and by that time it's just...
Did you have a set episode count that you felt obligated to stick to, or was it just, we gotta do it?
It was more we gotta do it. I mean, even nowadays, like, everyone says YouTube is all about consistency, and that's definitely something we failed at the second season. And you see it, there's definitely a significant decrease in views.
Yeah. Did you guys... This is kind of going back to the beginning, but did you guys ever think throughout this process that maybe we'll have that video that goes golden and we actually do get successful? Did that ever cross your mind, or did you guys ever try to attempt to get that sort of fame that YouTube can get?
We did.
We did. Not in our normal video format. I don't think we ever really thought that was going to go big.
No.
Unless for some random reason something happened. But that wasn't really...
We were just having fun with that.
Yeah. But there was one where we had fun with it, but we also... We thought it could be a you know, maybe not like 100,000, but we thought it could be thousands. We thought it was a good idea. It was a skit. It was a...
Is this the infamous arm wrestling
This
one?
is the infamous arm wrestling one.
Yes.
So just for the listeners...
Very infamous.
Information, I also do not know anything about this. They alluded to it like 10 times over our viewing of the episodes, and they were like, no, we're saving it for the podcast. So I am interested to hear, what is this arm wrestling video?
Well, I mean, I feel like we took a lot of inspiration from, like, training montages in Rocky movies and whatnot.
Mm-hmm. And this was before, like, the takeoff of Vine and Vine and TikTok and those types of things, like these short films that are, like, kind of funny. Mm-hmm. Like, YouTube had funny videos, but the idea was we went into a training montage. We were, like, lifting weights and all this stuff. It was like
push-ups,
like
running.
It was a lot of that stuff. It was made to look real difficult, like we were really training hard. And, like, the idea was to leak an early video, or not leak, but release an early video about the fight, the competition kind of thing.
I forgot about that.
We were going to do, like, release a video that said, tune in, like, this Friday for the Bro Show fight.
Right.
And, like, we had, like, some banter that was supposed to get hostile and make it, like, look like we're going to fight. And then there's, like, the Rocky music, and then all of a sudden, bam, we're arm wrestling. And I don't know. Who knows if it would have been good? We didn't finish.
No.
We just, like, it ends with us, like, arm wrestling instead of, like, fighting.
Sweet. And so that video was quite a leap from what your normal videos would be. But you guys felt like that would have been the one to...
I think so.
Just because it was actually funny. Like, that's one that, you know, your friends are going to... You might send that to someone, even if, like, you don't really care what we're talking about, you know? Like, it was one that you're like, this is actually kind of funny. And it's short enough that it'll keep people's attention span. I don't know. We thought it was a good idea. And whether it would have actually done anything, who knows? But that was... If any of them were going to, that was the one that would have.
Yeah.
We put, like, effort into it, too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Multiple days of thought process and, like, actually, like, filming, like, little clips and stuff. And
And so what happened?
It got deleted.
Weeks went by. We would ask what the status of it was. Oh, I haven't started it yet.
Months went by.
Do you think the footage is still flying around somewhere?
No, he
it's
deleted
completely
it.
Gone.
He didn't like the idea.
No.
Interesting.
We didn't know that at the time when we were filming it, but apparently later he said, I deleted it. I didn't think it was a good video.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
I mean, we would have done the editing ourselves.
I would have learned how to... It wouldn't have been a good editing, but we would have done something, because that was one that we actually put some real effort into.
And then at that point, it's like, why stop now and not put it in? Yeah, I understand that.
Because it was like, who knows if it would have been successful, but it was our biggest shot.
Yeah. And what time frame was this? Was this like mid-season 2, near the end?
It was probably mid to late season 1.
Season 1, yeah.
Oh, season 1.
Yeah.
This was kind of the start of the contention to some extent.
It was kind of like that time frame was kind of our height. Like, we had the most energy then. We were still really excited.
We were real consistent.
Right. And
we had an actual editor now.
Yeah. And so this was something we were like really excited for.
Let's think hypothetically right now. Let's say that video went viral. Do you think you would have gone back to your normal, what essentially season 2 became, your normal talks? Or would you guys think you would start going for that comedy genre?
It's a really good question.
My gut says a little of both. We would not lose our talk because that's what we really enjoyed a lot.
Right.
But I think we would try to do a few more skits. Because we had like some little ideas of that and stuff, but never really did too much with it. I think we would spend a little bit more time with that as like kind of side videos.
And I don't think like the videos where we're talking, I mean, maybe they would have seen a little bit of a boost. I think it still would have been a pretty small audience.
Yeah.
But then we could periodically release these short form skits, probably get on with Vine or something like that eventually too. And
you can move into that apartment that all the Viners live at in LA now.
Exactly.
Ideal, really.
Like,
right.
Blah, 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 Vine or whatever. I remember there was a moment too where it was more me inserting myself there, but to become a publicist for you guys or something like that, or producer, some made-up title to make me feel special.
Right.
But did you guys ever think of, especially after those first few times with Gavin, bringing anyone else or finding someone to run social media or something like that?
We were comfortable with social media. Like, our Facebook was pretty active.
It's true.
And it was a time before there was like that, like people would post things on Facebook, but this was before Facebook was like full of videos and like quizzes and stuff. Mm-hmm. This was still that time when it was
Farmville, Yoville, yeah.
You could actually reach people.
Right.
Like, now if you post something, who knows if anyone's gonna... Like, I have less than 100 friends. Still, if someone posts something, there's a good chance I wouldn't even see it.
Yeah.
Unless it's like a share of a video from some meme account or something. Yeah.
We did, I think we wanted people to be guest stars.
We definitely
liked that idea because we had kind of our back and forth that was kind of in spot, and we didn't have much to go off of. Like, we didn't have much energy other than what we had right then. We couldn't like really bring in other ideas too much by ourselves. So we liked the idea of bringing in co-stars. But
just like a guest.
Yeah, just someone to come on and talk about.
And you tried that with Gavin in an episode or two.
Yeah, it didn't... We kind of realized where his talents were. We're definitely more in producing.
Yeah, the behind the camera work.
I mean, it is hard. You know, it's not... Being in front of the camera isn't for everyone.
No.
So,
it's really not.
Yeah.
We asked, I think, a couple other people. They all said no, or, oh yeah, sometime, and then that
Scheduling conflicts.
Yeah.
And we weren't, as we saw with Gavin, like, we weren't always the most welcoming. Like, if we had a guest, they had to go with what we were doing, and a lot of people didn't like that. They're like, oh, they thought of us as more of a joke, whereas we took it more seriously, so they didn't like that they couldn't do what they wanted to do.
And I feel like a lot of people too, I know me at that time too, would have thought of it as like, oh, I'm just here to be awkward and like make a fool of everyone there and everything. But I feel like you guys were definitely more on the serious side of things. So what kind of guests were you thinking of, though? People who would specifically be talking about movies, or people who might add more variety, though?
I think it was to add more variety, not much off of like kind of what we had talked about, but just add a little bit more expertise, just a little bit on the side, because one of them that we had thought about was Michael David, and he would have been like video game kind of discussion.
Right.
So kind of seeing what season 2 looked like, were you guys also kind of thinking of going more of a news outlet sort of direction? Because you guys look like news anchors, and you guys started talking more about current, a little bit more current things than maybe season 1 had, which was a big thing coming up in YouTube at the time, where like
definitely
essentially just news channels, but very niche topics. Was that something that was in the purview, or were you guys just ready or just willing to stay where you were at?
I think we liked the idea of relevant weekly talks. Like, we would still have our main subject areas, but we wanted to, like, the idea of it being kind of a weekly, like, here's like something that's actually happened and relevant, and talk about that a bit, because that's something that we always heard was, this movie came out years ago, why are we talking about it? Yeah. And
my biggest complaint,
right.
through the years, even still today, when we watched, or Sunday when we watched it, it was like, yeah, the movie's like 5 years old at that point.
The thing is, though, like, we had, like, as we've talked about before, like, before we would film an episode, we would talk for 2 to 3 hours usually. So we talked a lot about the Bro Show, about what we wanted to do and what we saw our future as. And I don't remember when this was, but we hit a certain point where, you know, I was kind of talking about ways where we could get more popular and things like that. I think it was probably season 2 that would make the most sense. And you said, well, I just kind of like doing it for the fun of it. Like, it's a good point. Like, it gives us an excuse to hang out, talk about things we like. And any YouTube, like you kind of alluded to, any YouTuber would say, I mean, that's really kind of the right perspective to have. If you're trying purely to get popular, it's not going to happen because it'll seem inauthentic. Yeah. So I think, like, we did try to get more relevant, and there were relevant things like that we wanted to talk about. Like, we were talking about Breaking Bad in our, I think it was season premiere of season 2 when season 5 of Breaking Bad was going on. But it was still one of those things where we wanted to kind of keep it true to the brand and true to ourselves, even if it was irrelevant.
Yeah. I think we talked about a few things in season 2 that were, like you said, actually like relevant. Part of the issue, though, was also that it was so long between filming and release that it's like, oh, I think we talked about a Broncos game one time.
We did.
Because we referenced what had happened the night before or something like that. And it was a month before it was released. So that's not even relevant. No one remembers what game that was.
No.
I said I was excited about the upcoming game against so-and-so, and everyone knows the results of that game by the time it came out.
It was like
exactly.
Broncos and Lions. Like,
yeah.
Yeah.
That's a good point. Yeah, I mean, kind of going back to that was the producer stuff. I mean, that was one of the issues. Mm-hmm. There's no hard feelings, but he definitely didn't have any sort of interest or passion in editing our videos at that point.
Yeah, I think it had died off at that point.
Like, it was exciting at first, like, he got to do cool introductions and stuff. He didn't care about the content at all then.
Like the RC car intro.
Right, but at least he was able to have fun with it. That died off pretty quickly, and we were, I mean, fairly so, we were pretty hard on him after he deleted the arm wrestling video. That was definitely kind of,
that was like the start of
a defining moment, I think.
Because I think from that point on, we referenced it probably every night when we would talk.
Definitely.
If he would like put out an idea, if we didn't want to talk about it, we'd be like, no. And then he's like, well, why not? And we're like, well, you deleted our video. Like, it was, it became a unhealthy type of environment where we were not going to thrive around each other because
Yeah.
We were attacking each other for.
We still bring it up.
Yeah, we do.
If we see him, we'll be like, "Oh, you deleted the arm wrestling video, so you have no say in this."
Yeah, it's
Just watch him have it still somewhere.
it'd be so great.
It would.
I'm sure
doubt
it's in
so.
NSA's like databank somewhere.
That'd be
All right, FBI,
so
if you're
cool.
listening to us,
Send us the video.
please.
please.
Yeah, it was kind of tough. No right for him to delete that.
And I think that also maybe just because you guys didn't really clearly state what everyone's stake was in this too. Like obviously
That's a
you
good
guys
point.
were the in front of camera talent and he was the behind the scenes, but I think beyond that point he might have seen it more. I mean, we didn't call him in to get his side of the story, but he might have seen it as a three-way partnership, and I think you guys saw it more as you guys with him supporting, right?
I think that's a big part of it.
And that was
definitely.
probably just, and you can kind of see that going on with that struggle, even in the videos where you don't really see you guys like. Actually, you see him. You guys kind of do fight on camera a bit, but but you can kind of see that too, where it's like you guys, like you said earlier, like 2 against 1.
Right.
But to you guys, it was like, this is our brand. To him, it's like, no, this is all of us, maybe. But again, like you said, I don't know how on brand it would be to talk about coins.
That was, I think, the issue, especially
Right.
season 2, was the videos stopped being as exciting to edit, so then he wanted the topics to be exciting. And when he wanted the topics to be exciting, we're like, well, but we've always done this. And he's like, let's talk about this. And we're like, do you want to talk about that? He'd say no. And then we're like, well, we're not going to just regurgitate what you
Right.
said about it.
Yeah.
So that was kind of an issue, is he'd bring up a topic that we had no interest in, and then it's like, well, I'm not going to make up stuff about it, and I don't really want to read note cards about what it is, so...
It'd feel very inauthentic.
Yeah.
Like, would not be good. I think that's a good point. It's tough though when you're in purely like a volunteer sort of capacity though. There's no compensation involved. And we would always joke that we were going to give him like a raise and stuff.
Oh yeah, what was
once
it?
we start making money.
Like a chicken nugget or something was mentioned in the I forgot.
Probably.
But we were the ones saying we would give the raise, so we clearly thought we were in charge,
Yeah.
which it was definitely our brand, but he did put more work into it, but he still, it comes down to he shouldn't have deleted that video.
Yeah. So let's start talking about the end. I think near like the last few episodes, one I would say is not. We'll talk about that one in a second. But the last few ones that were kind of, I think there was the one video split into 3, and then there was one that was like 10 minutes. You can tell that it was just not, like, it almost felt like to you guys, like, just watching it, it felt like you guys were just there and like, all right, we gotta get this done. And
Your favorite one was the NBC one.
oh my gosh, I hated that.
Let's interview you for a second. What were your thoughts on the NBC episode?
The thing is, so you guys were talking about how, I think it was like The Office, and how it's stacking up with like ABC's new comedies, because like that was when Modern Family was coming out.
Oh, it was huge then.
And
that was like the
then-
biggest show on network TV was Modern Family.
Yeah, and then Big Bang Theory.
Right.
And that was The Office going up against it. And that would have been an interesting discussion if you actually had like stats to back it up. You guys were kind of flying off the cuff of like what was going on. And then the other thing too is like you're like, yeah, NBC's gonna have, like, I don't think they're gonna make it through this. And then you
Kinda
talk about
true.
like Modern Family and that, and then you're like, yeah, the lineup right now on Thursday nights is, well, first of all, you say Community was an ABC show, which is an NBC one.
Our bad.
And then you're like, oh yeah, the lineup is only like Parks and Rec and The Office, which are 2 shows. The thing is about, like, sure, Big Bang Theory has a huge following. Modern Family, I would say, does, but I feel like both of their fandoms have been passive. Whereas I know people still today who watch Parks and Rec, and The Office consistently.
So I mean, that's a fair argument.
But I mean, at the time you didn't know that, of course. But
no, I mean I feel like we did know that because it wasn't like they just started. I mean, all these shows were kind of in their prime in more of like the middle to end stages. That is by, at least speaking for myself, that is by no means what we were meaning to communicate. We meant to communicate exactly what you're saying.
Exactly.
That's definitely what we were going for.
It did not end up that way. And then also...
We were trying to trash talk Big Bang Theory, but I don't think that came across.
No, it definitely just seemed like, yeah, NBC's... It literally, by the end, I think you guys were saying, like, NBC's gonna die after this. Like, it's up against so much, and it's just not gonna last. And, like, that's fine, but also at the same time, I'm like, this is... Also, just the talk about network TV is just not a compelling argument to me.
That was season 2 in a nutshell. For some reason, this video got split into 3-minute videos because
it was so bad. Like,
and none of it's compelling.
Nothing that connects it to...
No, they're just 3 cuts in the middle of our video. Because it was another one of those, like, 15-minute videos that then got cut into 3-minute videos for who knows why. But then the topics, we don't even know how we get to them because we just jump into them. The topics probably weren't well chosen anyways, like...
No.
NBC.
Clearly we did not discuss it properly. But.
I still think the rise and fall of NBC is a interesting topic.
I think just the way it was conveyed.
No, I mean, it was conveyed terribly, but it's, I mean, we won't get into it on here, but basically all NBC has going for it is Sunday Night Football, and that's pretty much it.
That is
you're not really making that much money off of everybody binge watches The Office.
Right,
exactly. Superstore or whatever. That's like the only one that I have heard mentioned.
I mean, maybe it's good, but
it's not.
Definitely
not the
gets less than 4 million views an episode, I would assume.
I mean, that's an interesting idea, though. Like, making one show that's really good might not be as good for you as making a couple shows that are decent. Yeah.
Which is what CBS
because, like, The Office...
on.
I know so many people that rewatch The Office.
Still. Quarantine. Everyone was
right.
But guess what? That makes... no one really any money other than whoever has it on their platform right now.
Yeah.
And that not that much. Really.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it truly was a fascinating topic, especially back then when those shows were actually on TV.
If only we had actually discussed the topic instead of...
did some research and really, like...
said the right words.
I mean, I feel like I had the knowledge. I just didn't communicate it.
Yeah. I definitely lost you when you said Community was like an ABC show. I was like, okay. That was like, it was like Community, Parks and Rec, The Office, and then like 30 Rock after or something like that. So. And
to be honest, like I didn't even notice that. I think having an outside perspective was probably good.
Yeah. Well, you had an editor who also didn't catch it, so...
That's
part of our issue with why we always fought was he wasn't interested in those TV shows anyways, so we would talk about it. He wouldn't catch those things because he didn't care at all about them.
Right.
Which is why we would fight about what topic to talk about.
Yeah, he didn't care at all about anything we talked about.
Yeah. This went back to back with my favorite episode. I know we were dying through it, but I really did like that 23-minute episode. The long-form one, which I know at the time was not a thing. 23-minute episode. A 23-minute YouTube video was unheard of on YouTube at that time. Unless it was like some random lecture that someone posted on.
Right.
But I think the freedom you guys had, being able to have that extra time, really helped out with what I think your vision of the show was. So, and that was the last episode of season 2, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah. And that's the point, I think, where we realized we wanted a podcast. That was really where our brand would come across the best. Because, like you said, we sat behind in front of an Einstein poster, then we sat at a table. The whole rest of the seasons were us sitting in, like, basements, like, on chairs. And it's just, like... That was not at all what we thrived at, but I think like a free-flowing kind of discussion, which you can get in a podcast, especially like if you're like, 30 minutes isn't a long podcast, really.
No, not at all.
You can talk about stuff.
We're at an hour right now.
And it just flows. Like, it's just easier to communicate this way. And I think that's where we realized that's what we wanted. And that's what we kind of bullied our producer into with, if you watch the video, some very clear dissent.
Bullying.
The whole time. He's upset that we're doing it so long.
Was that the monkey one?
It was.
There's one point where he's saying something about time, and I'm like, yeah, Gavin, we know it's long, but we don't care. Like, that was
such an interesting episode. I mean, going back to the previous one where it was split up 3 ways real quick, that was 100%, that was like pure compromise. We knew what we wanted to do. We knew we wanted it to be long form. The only way that was going to be edited and put out on YouTube was if we compromised and said he could split it up. Those turned out to be the 3 worst episodes because, it completely lost its charm. Like, part of the charm we had was our weird ways of segmenting into other topics and stuff. When there's like a sharp cutoff, it's not good.
Because I'm sure that one was like a 15-minute, 12-minute
video.
video.
And it was probably just like a normal episode. Yeah.
Yeah. And do you guys feel like, I think for me watching it, you guys had a bit of side conversations among that too. Which I think during viewing, you guys said, we should have just recorded us talking the 2 hours before. That would have been more interesting. And I definitely saw that in the 23-minute episode. Do you guys think if you did focus more on just off-the-cuff sort of discussion, you would have had a little bit more interest?
Probably. I mean, it still would have been tough.
It was the wrong time of YouTube still when we started.
Definitely. So, I mean, when this was happening, I was watching... This was kind of like when the big corporations were what YouTube was. Because I was watching things like AMC, Movie Talk for movie fans. And it was like super strict, segmented. There's a host, always a female host. That's just there for her looks.
That's one thing you guys never
that wouldn't
had.
happen now.
Yeah.
But there's always a female host, strict sidebar of topics. You get 2 minutes to say what you want. And so I think that's kind of more of what we were going for, especially with like the episode that turned out to be segmented. And I mean, that's what was popular then. But I mean, definitely if we stuck with the free flow and like we're still doing it now, I mean, we could have maybe gotten an audience.
Yeah. So after that 23-minute episode, there's a random music video thing, I believe, which literally had nothing to do with you at all.
We were told that was getting posted, and I think that was about our input.
It was another compromise. That's all it was. It's like, oh, you do what you want to do. Like, this is completely off brand. But again, we need someone to put these introductions in and to upload these to YouTube for us. So if you do this music video, you better like keep us going for a little bit longer.
Yeah, and then
that was the music video is such a low point. It really is.
That's when I think that was the nail in the coffin.
Yeah.
And speaking of off-brand, the last video of the channel, which only came out in 2018, so 2 years ago, like, in hindsight, that's not a long time ago, you guys did an interview, which is very different, and it was definitely just more having fun in front of a camera.
Definitely, yeah.
I think we were over at Gavin's for dinner, just hanging out.
Lasagna.
Yeah, and we were just hanging out and having fun, and then I don't remember whose idea it was, but somebody really wanted to do it. I really didn't. I was like vehemently did not want to do it, but eventually
you can kind of tell.
Yeah.
That's why I'm sitting. Like, I was not wanting to do it, but then once we started, I was like, fine, I'll just just had fun with it. But yeah, it was. I don't really know exactly. I don't remember why we did it, but I don't know. It was kind of fun.
It was entertaining. Definitely entertaining for sure.
Can we go back to that like really real last episode real quick?
Yes.
'Cause, I mean, it is interesting. Like, we kind of came up with this funny sort of thing where Gavin was being attacked. And I mean, it was kind of funny, but it was also like very truthful of what was going on. There was also a lot of breaking the fourth wall to almost. We'd be like, oh, comment below. Oh, wait, we don't get any comments. Ha ha ha. Or, what do you guys think? Oh, wait, we don't have any viewers. Like, we were so cynical and done at that point. Like, it was obvious we couldn't continue. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think just in general, it was just a mess of being in the wrong time for it.
Definitely.
The relationship with your producer and just, I think, just life in general. Like, that was the complete end of the bro show.
Right, I mean, it wasn't one single thing. It was definitely those three combined.
Yeah. I mean, how many years ago was the last episode?
2014, I think.
2014? Okay, so we had just started college, like, the year before.
Right.
Yeah.
I think it was, like, late. I think it was winter. Maybe early spring or something.
Yeah.
It was before, because I always kind of envisioned, like, a comeback, because when, like, episode 7 and stuff like that came out, I mean, it didn't really matter that we didn't stick it out, because it would have been all the same, and it wouldn't have really, we wouldn't have had an interesting take on episode 7 or anything anyway. But yeah,
this is where
we were done.
I think we could have really profited from just free range talk to some extent, because that's where we could have talked about, like, some of the weird Reddit theories about different, like, Star Wars things that, like,
Dark Jar Jar.
Yeah, I love that. That idea is just something I'm very interested in. But, you know, like, that idea, I think we would have had a really hard time even convincing ourselves to talk about originally on the Bro Show.
I think we threw it around, but it was all after that last episode. Like, we were constantly throwing things around. We just never did anything after that.
Yeah.
So, what would you guys say? This is kind of closing. Let's say, we'll start out. What's one thing you've learned from the experiences of the Bro Show?
It's kind of like a cliche, but you kind of realize that, like, either setting of, like responsibilities kind of matters to some extent, and also you kind of have to, like, realize that you have to pay for something if you want it to be fully controlled.
That's true.
And, like, all the relationships that go with, like, that kind of, because if you're keeping your people all happy and stuff, they're more like, everyone's more willing to work together on things. But the second that we kind of let, like, and, like, I was a strong proponent of it, like, I was bad about it, like, just overruling our producer, I think at that point was when we realized that he's doing it for free, so he kind of controls to some extent when he does it, and
right.
Then we'd get mad about it, but then we'd fight about it, but then no one had any control. So I guess just, like, relationships and, like, setting those boundaries, I guess.
I mean, it was still a lot of fun doing it, though.
Yeah.
Like, there's some really good memories of that. And I mean, we've said it before, but it really comes down to wrong place at the wrong time. Because there's, like, at least 2 podcasts I listen to right now that are completely freeform. Like, they don't have any sort of script or any even ideas of anything to talk about. And I really enjoy listening to them, and I think that's what we would have definitely benefited from. And I mean, they don't have huge followings. They, like, one of them gets maybe 1,000 to 2,000 views a week, but I think we could have been there for sure. Yeah, we were just a little ahead of the time, and we didn't define our roles or push hard enough for what we wanted to do, especially towards the end.
It was very, very fun, though.
It was a lot of fun.
There was hours spent in the basement just discussing, throwing things at each other. It was just a good time.
Literally throwing things at each other.
Literally. Oh, yeah. It was hours of our life were spent discussing before episodes and just having fun.
Yeah, I don't regret it at all.
So what's the future of the Bro Show? After all of this.
In the interview that we talked about, the last episode or the last video, we said we were going to do another one 5 years from then.
And that was 2 years ago.
Which was surprisingly already 2 years ago. So we only have 3 years to figure out what we're going to do.
A remake of the arm wrestling video?
We could do this. Or another interview. We could do the exact same interview again.
We could.
In Gavin's mom's house.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
We'll see. I mean, I think there's a very low chance that nothing will ever be uploaded to that channel.
I agree.
Most likely there's going to be something
will end
eventually.
up on there
Absolutely.
Do you guys think you'd remember in 3 years, or do you think...
I think we will.
Or do you guys think something will happen in between that time?
It could be in between.
Could be after knows? Even, really.
Yeah, but eventually... I mean, the channel's not dead, I don't think.
There'll be a day, if nothing else, when we're hanging out years down the line, just joking about it, and then
we'll do it.
Oh, wow, let's do something. Yeah.
Well, I mean, you were able to figure out the login.
Yeah, right. Get in. So.
Yeah.
It's not a secure password.
Shh. I could probably guess what it is, but...
We told you what it was.
You did?
Or you were there
discussed
at least.
It audibly.
Yeah.
It's okay.
Yeah. I don't eavesdrop,
We're covert.
I could probably guess. But yeah, I think that is our episode for today. So, sorry for all the cars driving by, but thank you for coming. Thank you for being vulnerable and talking about, I guess, was a huge part of your life. It was like
It really was. Yeah.
4 years of your life. That's a big thing. So, I appreciate it. Thanks for coming on.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
Like, comment, subscribe.
Yeah, the only person who probably listens to us, I think, is Kyle. So Kyle,
he'll like it. Like this video, Kyle.
Comment. Watch some Bro Show episodes for the sake of it. But
all right, and then the most important part.
We're the bros, and we wish you a good day.